Hey, stop scrolling, look up. Take a breath. We are living in one of the most intense, unpredictable, and spiritually significant times in recent memory. Wars are erupting, innocent people are dying, injustice is normalized, truth is distorted, and if you're thinking what is happening to the world, you're not alone. But here's the wake-up call. This isn't just geopolitics, it's not just history repeating itself. It's prophecy unfolding. And yes, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, warned us about this. So let's talk, not in fear, not in panic, but in truth, clarity, and faith. When we talk about the sayings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, many people make the mistake of seeing them as distant historical quotes statements made in the context of a different world, a different society, and a different time. But that is a shallow understanding. The reality is far more powerful. The hadiths of the Prophet, PBO, are not locked in the past. They are living guidance, words of truth meant to echo through the generations. They weren't just instructions for the companions they were messages for you, for now, for this moment in history. You see, the Prophet PBO wasn't just a teacher of daily rituals. He was a divinely inspired guide who mapped out the moral, social, and spiritual trajectory of humanity. He didn't only speak about how to pray or how to fast. He spoke about how the world would unravel when truth is ignored, when justice is abandoned, when greed becomes the God people serve. He foretold of a time when holding on to Islam would be like holding on to hot coal, when people would abandon religion, not because they lacked faith, but because the world would become so filled with deception, distraction, and destruction that truth would feel heavy. He warned us about leaders who would betray their people, about wealth being hoarded in the hands of the few, about widespread killing that would become so normal people wouldn't even understand why it was happening. Sound familiar? These aren't vague poetic warnings. They're strikingly relevant. Today, we're watching conflicts erupt across the world. Some of them manufactured, some fueled by greed, all of them devastating. We see human lives treated like numbers. We see truth manipulated by media, and we see moral values twisted to fit political narratives. This isn't an accident. This is the kind of world the Prophet PBO told us would come. But here's the thing, he didn't tell us this to make us afraid. He told us this so we could prepare. That's the part most of us forget. When a doctor warns you about symptoms of a disease, it's not to scare you, it's to help you take action before it's too late. The Prophet PBO did the same. His foresight was an act of mercy. He didn't speak in abstract metaphors, he gave detailed signs. He said there will come a time when the liar will be believed, and the honest person will be dismissed. When people will chase dunya at the cost of their faith. When communities will be divided. When injustice will spread so widely that the oppressor will be honored and the oppressed will be blamed. But he also gave us solutions. He didn't just say, this will happen, good luck. He said, keep your faith firm. Stick to the Quran. Speak the truth even when it's hard. Stand with the oppressed even when it costs you. Trust in Allah when the world turns upside down. His words were like a map for navigating dark times, not avoiding them, but walking through them with clarity. So when we ask, did the Prophet Muhammad, PBO, warn us about this war, this world, this chaos? The answer is yes, over and over again. But he didn't just warn us, he empowered us. And that's what makes his message timeless. He gave us guidance not just to survive but to rise as individuals, as communities, and as a force of truth in a world of confusion. And if we reconnect with his words, not as relics of the past but as blueprints for the present, we'll stop being passive observers and start becoming active believers. That's the real wake-up call. When you look at the state of the world today, the wars, the suffering, the political games, the media manipulation, it's overwhelming. People are angry, confused, and exhausted. You might feel like the world has lost its way entirely, that morality has collapsed, and humanity is in free fall. But what if I told you that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, already told us this would happen? That this chaos, this global unrest, this moral breakdown, it's not random. It's not just history taking a dark turn. It's something that was described with terrifying precision over 1400 years ago, and we are living through it right now. The Prophet PBO spoke of a time when truth would be seen as falsehood, and falsehood would be seen as truth. A time when widespread killing would become so common that people would not even know why they're killing or being killed. He warned of times when leaders would be corrupt and dishonest, when the trust would be lost, and when wealth would be hoarded among the elite, while the masses suffer in poverty. Doesn't this sound like what we're seeing today? Think of the wars in Gaza, Sudan, Yemen, Ukraine, and other parts of the world. Civilians being bombed, children dying, families displaced, not just by chance or chaos, but by policies, by silence, by the greed and power plays of people in high places. And yet the international community picks and chooses who deserves justice. Oppression is normalized. Human suffering is categorized by politics instead of principle. These aren't just signs of corruption, they're signs of fitna, the very trials the prophet warned us about. And if you're waiting for some bigger end times moment to wake up, you're missing what's already happening. The deception, the injustice, the bloodshed, it's not theoretical anymore, it's happened. The hadiths speak of a world where evil will be celebrated, where trust will be a rare thing, and where people will follow their desires instead of truth. That's now. That's our newsfeed. That's our reality. But here's the key. The prophet PBO didn't just tell us these things would happen, so we could sit back and say, well, it was predicted, nothing to do. No, he told us because we were meant to be ready. He warned us so we could remain awake when others are asleep. These signs aren't just meant to inform you, they're meant to transform you. If you understand that these global events are not just political but prophetic, then everything changes, your response changes, your purpose becomes clear. You stop just reacting emotionally to headlines. You start responding spiritually, intellectually, and morally. You start preparing your soul, your family, your community. You realize that injustice anywhere isn't just a humanitarian issue, it's a spiritual call to action. You start to feel a responsibility, not just sorrow. The prophet PBO gave us the lens through which to understand this chaos. He didn't sugarcoat it. He said there would be dark times, but he also taught us how to navigate them with patience, with justice, with sincerity, and with unity. He emphasized the importance of speaking the truth, even when it's dangerous. He reminded us to never align ourselves with oppression, and to always support the oppressed, regardless of their race, religion, or background. We are living in a time that was described with stunning accuracy by the one who never spoke from his own desire. What we're seeing today isn't just war, it's a sign. What we're seeing isn't just injustice, it's a test of our hearts, our faith, and our willingness to rise to the moment. So the real question isn't why is this happening? The real question is, now that you know, what will you do? One of the most dangerous beliefs a person can hold, especially during times of crisis, is that their actions don't matter. That faith is just about thoughts and feelings, about quietly waiting while the world burns around them. But that's not what Islam teaches, and that's certainly not what Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, modeled. Faith in Islam was never meant to be passive. It was never meant to be confined to your prayer mat, your private life, or your silent heart. Faith is meant to be lived through action, through responsibility, and through showing up, especially when things get hard. There's a powerful hadith that makes this clear. The Prophet PBO said, "Whoever among you sees something wrong, let him change it with his hand. If he cannot, then with his tongue, and if he cannot, then with his heart, and that is the weakest of faith." That statement isn't just religious advice, it's a complete worldview. It's a blueprint for how to exist in a broken world. It's a call to wake up, get involved, and never believe that silence or inaction is neutral, because it isn't. When we look at the suffering and injustice happening across the globe, whether it's in war zones, refugee camps, or even on our own city streets, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But Islam doesn't ask you to fix everything. It asks you to do something, to take whatever power you have, whether it's your voice, your wealth, your time, your skills, your platform, or even your dua, and use it to push back against falsehood and stand with truth. This is where many of us get it wrong. We hear about the end times, we read the hadiths about widespread fitan, corruption, and the collapse of justice, and instead of seeing those warnings as calls to action, we treat them like reasons to give. We throw up our hands and say, well, the Prophet said it would happen, so what can we do? That mindset is not Islamic, that is not faith, that is resignation disguised as religion. If the Prophet PBO had adopted that mentality, Islam wouldn't have reached us today. He faced immense oppression, threats, exile, and war, yet he kept going. He organized, he spoke out, he challenged power, and he uplifted the oppressed. That's what faith looked like in practice, and that's the example we're supposed to follow. Your role, your voice, and your presence matter more than you realize. Even if all you can do is raise awareness, share a fact, support a cause, or make sincere dua, that is action. And when those actions are backed by sincere faith, they carry weight in both this world and the next. You may think you're just one person, but Islam was built on the strength of individuals who refused to be silent when silence was easy. And it's not just about global causes. Sometimes standing up means having uncomfortable conversations in your own home, or refusing to stay quiet when injustice happens in your workplace, or protecting someone being bullied in your school. These small moments when you choose courage over comfort are where faith proves itself. So no, you don't get to sit this out, not spiritually, not morally. If you're alive in these times, it's not by accident. You're here for a reason. You have a purpose, you have influence, you have a soul that Allah entrusted with the responsibility to uphold truth. That's not a burden, that's an honor, and when you understand that faith requires action, you stop waiting for someone else to fix the world and start asking, what can I do today, with what Allah has given me to make it better? One of the most subtle and dangerous traps of modern times is the illusion that we are informed just because we are connected. We scroll endlessly, absorbing headlines, hot takes, and emotionally charged content, thinking we understand what's happening. But knowing of something is not the same as truly understanding it. The difference between surface-level awareness and deep-rooted knowledge is the difference between reaction and wisdom, between confusion and clarity. And when it comes to surviving the storms of the modern world, that difference is everything. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized knowledge not as a luxury, but as a requirement. He said, seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. That's not just academic knowledge or memorizing facts. It's the type of knowledge that anchors your heart when the world tries to pull it in 1,000 directions. It's the type of knowledge that teaches you how to think, how to act, and how to stay firm when deception becomes the norm. Right now, in this age of misinformation, half-truths, and psychological warfare, ignorance is not just dangerous, it's deadly. It's what allows injustice to spread. It's what causes people to defend falsehood while thinking they're standing for truth. It's what makes us emotionally reactive instead of spiritually grounded. And sadly, many Muslims have fallen into this trap, knowing bits and pieces of what the Prophet PBOS said, without connecting the dots, seeing the chaos in the world, but not understanding the bigger picture, feeling disturbed, but not knowing what to do. That's why it is absolutely essential to go back to the sources, to study the Quran, not just read it, to understand the hadiths, not just quote them, to listen to scholars who are sincere, knowledgeable, and rooted in the tradition, not just influencers with loud opinions. When you start learning with the intention of clarity, things begin to make sense. You start to see how the Prophet PBOS predicted these events, not to paralyze you with fear, but to equip you with foresight. You understand that trials were always part of the test, but so was the guidance on how to survive them. True knowledge strengthens you, it gives you perspective. Instead of being overwhelmed by every new piece of bad news, you begin to see patterns. You understand the signs of the end times, the rise of injustice, the roles of nations, the deception of media, and the tests of the heart. You begin to feel less lost and more prepared, less reactive, more intentional, and it doesn't stop with you. When you gain knowledge, you become a light for others. Your family looks to you for understanding, your community sees you as a source of strength. That's how we rebuild, one informed soul at a time. Ignorance weakens the ummah, but knowledge revives it. And let's be honest, seeking knowledge today is easier than it has ever been. With the resources available online, lectures, books, and access to scholars, the excuses are running out. We can no longer claim we didn't know. We can only say we didn't try. And in a time where the truth is under attack from every direction, not seeking knowledge is not just lazy, it's dangerous. If you want to wake up, start by learning. If you want to be strong, seek understanding. If you want to truly respond to what's happening in the world, don't just react, educate yourself. Because when your mind is clear and your heart is grounded, the chaos of the world won't shake you, and that clarity, that wisdom begins with knowledge. In times of injustice, there is no such thing as neutrality. Silence, whether intentional or passive, is never just silence. It is always a form of alignment. It sends a message, whether you mean to or not. In that message, more often than not, favors the oppressed. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made this clear long before any political activist or social movement did. He taught that when oppression exists, and people remain silent, that silence is not neutral, it's a betrayal of truth. It's human nature to want to avoid conflict, to stay comfortable, to not get involved. We tell ourselves, this isn't my fight, or I don't know enough to speak up, but those are just ways we justify our inaction. The reality is, every time we choose silence in the face of suffering, we are choosing to prioritize our own comfort over someone else's pain, and whether we say it out loud or not, that silence echoes as complicity. The Prophet PBOS taught us to speak the truth, even when it's bitter, even when it costs us. In one narration he said, the best form of jihad is to speak a word of truth to a tyrant ruler. That hadith alone tells us everything we need to know about our responsibility. Speaking out is not optional, it is part of faith. Standing for justice, even when the world tells you to sit down, is part of being a believer. Let's be honest, the systems we live in often reward silence and punish truth. If you speak up for Palestine, or against genocide, or for victims of racism, you might lose friends, face backlash, or get labeled as extreme. But what is the alternative? Staying quiet while children are bombed, while lies are broadcast as true, while the dignity of whole nations is crushed before our eyes. We don't get to claim moral superiority while remaining silent about moral catastrophes. Every time we choose not to speak out because it's too political, we're forgetting that Islam has always stood with the oppressed. Always. The Prophet PBOS was a champion of justice, not just in theory but in action. He defended the weak, he stood up against injustice, and he risked everything for truth. And if we claim to follow him, we cannot afford to do less. Some people think that staying out of it makes them wise or above the conflict, but wisdom is not the same as avoidance. Being informed, being strategic, that's one thing, but choosing silence out of fear, out of social pressure or out of apathy, that's not neutrality, that's abandonment. The Quran warns us repeatedly not to side with oppressors, not even in our hearts. It says, do not incline towards the wrongdoers, lest you be touched by the fire. That's strong language, because Allah knows how easy it is for people to look away, to stay silent, and to justify it. But silence in the face of injustice is not just a moral failure, it is a spiritual one. So what does it mean to break the silence? It doesn't mean you have to be famous, or have a massive platform. It means using whatever you do have, your voice, your vote, your presence, your wallet, your art, your influence, to stand on the side of truth. It means choosing the uncomfortable position of justice over the easy comfort of passivity. It means remembering that on the day of judgment, Allah won't ask how many followers you had. He'll ask whether you stood with the truth when it mattered. You are always choosing. Even when you're quiet, you're speaking. The question is, what is your silence? When the world feels like it's falling apart, it's easy to slip into fear. It's natural to feel overwhelmed when every headline screams war, destruction, and injustice. You may feel small, powerless, even hopeless. But here's something you need to remember. This isn't the time to panic. It's the time to wake up. Because fear weakens you. It freezes you. But faith gives you strength. In this moment, right now, is not a signal to retreat into worry. It's a call to rise with conviction, clarity, and purpose. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, didn't just describe the trials of the end times to scare us. He described them so we could rise above the confusion, not drown in it. These signs, as intense as they are not just a cause for sorrow, they're proof that the message he brought was true. And if that message is true, then so is the solution: steadfast faith, sincere action, and unity. A wake-up call shakes you out of your sleep. It makes you uncomfortable, not because it hates your peace, but because it sees the fire coming closer and it refuses to let you burn quietly. That's what this moment is. It's uncomfortable, it's intense, but it's also mercy. Because Allah doesn't leave us without warnings. He doesn't let us walk blindly into the storm without signs to guide us. In this storm we're in, it's reminding us what matters. It's burning away distractions. It's forcing us to confront who we are and what we truly stand for. Now is the time to reconnect with Allah, like never before. Not just through ritual, but through purpose, through remembrance, through standing for truth. We can't afford to live on autopilot anymore, doing the bare minimum, numbing ourselves with entertainment, avoiding the hard questions. These times are too serious for that. These are the days when souls are being tested, when truth is being separated from falsehood, and when your response defines you more than your circumstances. This isn't about being perfect. No one is expecting you to have all the answers, or fix all the problems, but you are expected to care, you are expected to act, to use your skills, your knowledge, your influence, however small you think it is, for something bigger than yourself. If you're alive right now, it's for a reason. Allah doesn't make mistakes. You weren't born into this era by chance. You were placed here because you have something to offer this moment. The only question is, will you rise, or will you retreat? And let's be clear, rising doesn't mean shouting the loud. It doesn't mean reacting with anger or despair. It means anchoring yourself in faith. It means becoming someone who doesn't just follow the crowd, but follows the truth, even when it's hard. It means using every challenge as a reason to turn back to Allah, to deepen your knowledge, to grow in courage, and to unite with your community for a greater cause. This wake-up call isn't just global, it's personal. It's asking you, what do you stand for? What legacy are you building? What will your children inherit? Fear and confusion, or strength and clarity? The world doesn't need more people who are just staying out of it. It needs believers who are alive, aware, and ready. It needs Muslims who walk with purpose, speak with wisdom, and act with sincerity. That's the response to this chaos, not fear, not retreat, but real, grounded faith, and action that proves it. So when you see the signs unfolding, don't let them paralyze you, let them fuel you. Let them remind you that Allah is still in control, that His promises are still true, and that your role in this moment matters. Wake up, not in panic but in power. So here we are, standing at a crossroads between denial and awakening, between passivity and purpose. And I want you to remember something, none of this is happening without meaning. The chaos, the wars, the injustices, none of it exists outside of Allah's knowledge. But that doesn't mean we sit back and wait. It means we rise, because these signs, these global trends, they're not just markers of prophecy, they're personal invitations. A wake-up call from your Creator telling you, this is your moment, this is your test, this is your time. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, didn't warn us of these times so that we could be afraid. He warned us so that we could be ready, so that we could be aware, so that we wouldn't lose our way when the world lost its mind. You have guidance, you have truth, you have a responsibility, and more than that, you have a purpose. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment to act. The perfect moment is now, whether it's learning, speaking, giving, creating, standing, sharing, just start, because you never know what single action of yours might spark the change someone else desperately needs. You never know which step you take might be the one that tips the scale in your favor on the day of judgment. So don't let fear define your faith. Let faith define your fight, and I don't mean a fight of anger or vengeance. I mean the fight to remain human in a world that's growing cold. The fight to stay awake while others fall asleep. The fight to carry the light of this deen, when the darkness seems overwhelming. You were chosen to be here, in this time for a reason. You're not powerless, you're not irrelevant. You are part of a story much bigger than yourself. And every choice you make, every stand you take, every truth you speak, it matters. Allah sees it, and history will remember it. So ask yourself, as this speech comes to a close but your journey continues, when the world was on fire, where did I stand? What did I do with the truth I was given? Did I rise, or did I remain asleep? Because the time for sleep is over, the alarm has gone off, and it's not just a war we're witnessing, it's a wake-up call. Now rise.